A city of unimaginable wealth, a civilization said to be more advanced than anything around, an empire powerful to dominate the known world, and then, according to the story, it disappears beneath the waves in a single day and night. No survivors, no ruins, and no proof. Just a mystery that has survived for more than 2,000 years. And one question: what if Atlantis was real? I'm Lisa, and this is Say It Anyway. Most people think Atlantis was ancient history. In reality, everything we know about Atlantis comes from one man, a Greek philosopher called Plato. And that's where the mystery begins, because unlike Egypt or Rome or Greece, there are no Atlantis records, no maps, no artifacts, and no inscriptions, just Plato. Now, around 360 BC, Plato wrote two works, Timaeus and Critias. Inside them he described a place unlike anything else in the ancient world, a massive island civilization beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. According to Plato, Atlantis was rich, powerful, technologically advanced. Its cities were built in enormous concrete rings, its harbours were engineering marvels, and people possessed wealth beyond imagination. Gold, silver, exotic resources, vast armies, huge fleets. For a time, Atlantis was the superpower of its age. Then came the catastrophic problem. Plato tells us that Atlantis became corrupted. Its leaders became greedy, arrogant, and obsessed with power. Does that sound familiar? And then nature struck. Earthquakes, floods, violent destruction, and one single day and night, Atlantis disappeared beneath the waves. Gone. Forever. So the story says. Did Plato invent the entire thing? Because here's the problem. No ancient writer before Plato ever mentions Atlantis. Not one. Which leads most historians to conclude something important. Atlantis may have been a fictional story from the very beginning. A warning, a lesson. A tale about what happens when powerful societies become corrupt. And honestly, that explanation makes a lot more sense. But it isn't the only possibility. There is the mainstream historical position. Under this theory, Plato created Atlantis as a philosophical tool, a fictional civilization designed to illustrate moral failure. Many scholars believe Atlantis belongs in the same category as a parable, not history, not archaeological, a story. And if that's true, the mystery ends there, except millions of people aren't convinced. This is where things become more interesting, because while Atlantis itself may not have existed, the disaster behind the story might have. Many researchers point to the ancient Mayan civilization on Crete. Thousands of years ago, the Mayans were one of the most advanced societies in the Mediterranean. Then disaster struck. In around 16,000 BC, a volcanic island erupted, which is now the modern place of Santorini. The explosion was enormous, the tsunami swept across the region and cities were destroyed. Trade networks collapsed, entire communities vanished. Sound familiar? Some historians believe memories of that catastrophic survived through the generations, eventually becoming the Atlantis legend. This is a theory that refuses to die because despite centuries of searching, people still believe Atlantis was real. Over the years, it has been placed almost everywhere. Spain, the Azores, the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, even Antarctica. Explorers have searched oceans, researchers have scanned coastlines, documentaries have claimed discoveries, books have sold millions of copies, yet no location has never ever produced evidence strong enough to convince the archaeological community. Atlantis remains missing. Now, we move into conspiracy theories. Some believe Atlantis wasn't simply another civilization. They believed it was extraordinary. A culture possessing knowledge that was later lost, advancing engineering, unknown technology, scientific understanding ahead of its time. Supporters point towards massive stone structures, ancient construction methods, unexplained megalithic sites, and ask, are we underestimating the ancient world? The problem is, none of these things prove Atlantis exists. but they do keep the conversation alive. This is what fascinates me most, because Atlantis isn't about a city, it's about a possibility. Atlantis represents every lost thing humanity has ever searched for: lost knowledge, lost history, and a lost civilization. The fear that something extraordinary existed and vanished before we could understand it. That's why Atlantis survives. Not because we found it, but because we haven't. If we're being honest, the strongest evidence suggests Atlantis was either a fictional story created by Plato or a fictional story inspired by real historical disasters. At this moment, there is no acceptable archaeological evidence proving Atlantis exists exactly as described, but mysteries don't survive for 2,000 years because of evidence. They survive because of questions. If Plato wasn't inventing Atlantis, what if he was remembering it? What if behind the legend, behind the myth, behind the centuries of speculation, there really was a civilization lost to history? And if there was, would we even recognise it if we found it? A city beyond imagination, a catastrophe beyond belief, a mystery older than most nations on Earth. Whether Atlantis was real, fiction, or something in between, it remains one of humanity's greatest unanswered questions. And maybe the story ends there, but the questions never do. We'll let you decide. This is Say It Anyway.